having options for card payment, whether it's with your card, whether it's with your watch, whether it's with your phone, in 2025, that's just expectation at this point. So if you're not accepting card payment, you're doing your business a disservice.
Welcome to the Path to Owning It podcast by Provide, hosted by me, Corey Brown, a marketing leader at Provide with over a decade in supporting small businesses. Whether you're an aspiring or established founder, here you'll find tools and advice to start building your legacy and take your business to new heights. To help you achieve your entrepreneurial ambitions, each month, we'll tap into our unparalleled network of industry experts who will join us on our quest to provide the answers to your most pressing questions. Like what you hear? Follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you listen. Joining us today is Cris Agenter, a seasoned professional with over 13 years of experience at WorldPay, a global payments leader trusted by over 1 million merchants and counting. As regional sales manager, Cris has played a pivotal role in developing relationships and practices that have laid the groundwork for success within their merchant bank channel. Today, we're going to discuss all things merchant services and highlight the top items small business owners need to run their businesses successfully. Cris, welcome to the show. We're so happy to have you with us here today.
Thanks, Corey.
Today we're going to be talking about merchant services, and I think it would be great if you could just give us a quick summary of what exactly are merchant services and why are they essential for small business owners today?
Sure. Great question. Merchant services can be summed up really easily, actually, and it's the ability for business owners to accept card payment from Visa, MasterCard, Discover, and American Express. The reason that it's so essential and vital for business owners to have as a part of their business is that for most small businesses, about 80 to 90% of the revenue that comes through the doors is going to come through the doors on card payment. So it's absolutely crucial that small business owners in 2025 have the ability to accept those card payments.
Yeah, absolutely. And as someone that's new to this and wants to get set up, what's the typical timeline for setting up an account and what kind of steps are involved in that process?
It's going to vary from industry type to business type for a lot of different things. But generally speaking, for most small businesses, if you're doing business with your bank or with an accredited merchant provider, you're going to fill out an application. That application is going to go through an underwriting process. That underwriting process is basically just verifying you are who you say you are, your business is at where you say it's going to be at, and you're selling the stuff that you say that you're selling. And as long as everything checks out, they'll ship you out some equipment or send you some software out that you can process those transactions with. And basically start to finish, most small business owners can probably expect that process to take somewhere between 5 and 7 business days.
Okay. Wow. That's much quicker than I had anticipated. That's great.
It can be longer, but it can also be shorter as well, too.
Sure. And I would imagine there's many options for small business owners to choose from. What are some key factors that business owners should consider when they are choosing a merchant services provider?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that they really need to think about. First and foremost, they need to think about their customers, right? They need to think about how customers would want to pay them. And I think the best thing that they can do is think about if they were doing business in their store, their shop, their practice, how would they want to pay for the services that day, right? So thinking about that, I think that another huge thing that they would want to consider is service and security. How comfortable are they with technology? How comfortable are they with taking payments? That's going to dictate the type of service that you as a customer of a merchant services provider is going to want. So is in-person service something that you're looking for? Is talking to a direct person something that you're going to want? Or are you comfortable with just calling into an 800 number should something happen? And then the other thing that they really do need to consider is the security behind the processing services that they're choosing. Protecting their business's data and protecting their clients' data is something they should definitely think about.
Yeah. And mentioning security, what sort of measures should small businesses take to ensure that their payment processing is secure? And how would they mitigate any sort of fraud risk that they might encounter? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, anytime you sign up for merchant services, you're going to have to go through something called PCI compliance. Payment card industry compliance is what that stands for.
Okay.
And basically what's going to happen is you're going to start by filling out a survey that's going to come to you automatically from whatever merchant services provider that you set up with. you're going to get a survey that's going to ask you a bunch of questions, basically about measures that you take to protect your business's data. That's a big key right there. And the reason that you're doing that is that you're registering your business with the card networks, Visa, MasterCard, Discover, and American Express, to basically say the transactions that you're taking are taken in a safe way. Means, is your internet protected? Are you using up-to-date software? Are you using up-to-date hardware that's in compliance with the card payment industry and their security measures that they have in? Also, other things like, are you keeping card information on pen and paper out in the open in your business? That's not a compliant thing to do. If you have card information, it needs to be stored on a very secure piece of software, or any other critical information needs to be stored under lock and key. So those are the types of things that have to do with PCI compliance and keeping a business safe and secure when it comes to merchant services.
Are there any sort of steps that a business needs to take to kind of maintain that sort of compliance? Or their checks and balances? What can they expect?
You got all the good questions today, Corey. Yeah, no. So a couple of things. One, yes, they need to fill out a PCI compliance survey on an annual basis to re-up. Now, that's not necessarily meaning that they need to do it on January 1 of every year.
Okay.
Once you do PCI compliance, it covers you for 12 consecutive months whenever you set up.
Gotcha.
Also, depending on who you do your compliance through, there may be, intermittent scans of your Wi-Fi, your internet connections, potentially your work computer, if that's where the transactions are running through, just to make sure that everything is, up to scope with payment card industry standards.
Gotcha. It's come a long way from my first retail job of actually taking an imprint of the credit card when the machine was down. That sort of thing.
When I first started in this business in 2012, we weren't quite doing the knuckle busters. We were just out of that phase, but
sure.
The credit card machines that people were using back then, they were still using machines the size of calculators in the 80s with the green numbers and everything like that. They were connected to phone lines. So it's come a long way.
Yeah, it really doesn't seem that long ago. So it's funny, the advancements, Speaking of that, can you discuss, when picking a merchant services provider, the importance of scalability and flexibility within merchant services for growing businesses?
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's a really important piece because, the business, when you're starting out, the business on day one isn't going to be the same business on day 365 or day 500 or whatever. Sure. So having a merchant services program and working with a company that you feel like you can grow with is really, really important. So those are great questions to ask when you're setting up your account. Is something that's ever popular today is going to be, working with different apps within your merchant services equipment. So what kind of apps are available for my business? For example, I don't need it today, but I'm planning on hiring employees. So does your program offer the ability to have time clock management? Right now, I just have people coming into the store, but I'd like to expand that online within the next 6 months. Do you have the opportunity to do that? Can you help my business get on social media? So those are things that business owners can think about when they're thinking about merchant services and scaling their business.
Yeah.
Is what can my merchant services provider do to provide more revenue streams for my business as I'm ready to grow and bring them into my business? Another thing on the opposite end of that's really important is not getting too deep too quickly, right? You want to be able to have the appropriate package program, however you want to put it, for your business at the stage that it's at. So that's why it's really important to consult with a merchant services expert that can talk about your industry and their experience with working with businesses like yours so that you can get off on the right foot with merchant services.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Since we're talking about kind of the setup of all of this, could you provide an overview of maybe the general costs associated with setting up and maintaining a merchant services account?
Yeah, so that's another one that's going to be very, very dependent on different industry types.
Yeah.
But there are some constants that new business owners can consider. So basically, there's 3 places where cost is going to come from when setting up a merchant services account. And the bulk of it is going to come from the card networks, Visa, MasterCard, Discover, and American Express, and the fees that they charge for accepting the cards that are in their network. And you may have heard the term before, but that's called interchange. So other people might call it pass-through, or they might call it cost. All means the same thing. But every business pays those interchange fees. So it doesn't matter if you're the McDonald's next door, if you're Amazon, or if you're the new business that's just getting started out, everybody pays interchange fees for acceptance of those cards and those networks. And that is going to make up the bulk of the cost that new business owners are going to see. The next place is going to be the processor, right? Processing those cards, from making sure that the funds from the transaction gets from the customer's card or checking account
Hmm.
over into the business owner's checking account and doing it in a safe and timely manner. So that's where WorldPay comes in, right?
Sure.
We're the ones that are actually processing the transaction from customer to business owner, and there's cost that's associated with that. So that's the second place. And then the last place that business owners can expect for cost to come from is the means in which that transaction took place, meaning did they have a credit card machine? Did they have a POS system? Or did they process the transaction on software? All of those things are going to have costs associated with it. So altogether, that's going to be your merchant services program that's going to put out an overall cost on a monthly basis. If you're talking about a medical practice, for example, if you Googled it, Google would tell you that average cost for a medical practice for merchant services would be somewhere between 1.5% and 3%. I would say that that's probably a fairly accurate number, depending on the medical practice. I would say probably trending more towards 2.25 to 2.5% is pretty on point for a medical practice. But if you're
Okay.
talking about other industries, that may vary pretty largely.
Yeah. Thanks for that. I know that's hard to put that down with all the different industry types, and we tend to
Sure.
get a lot of an it depends answer on the show. So
A
thanks
lot
for
of
diving.
noise, a lot of variance. Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So thanks for diving into that a little bit
Yep.
more. I want to talk about interchange fees real quick. It's something we hear about a lot now, where retailers and other businesses are charging the consumer, the customer, the 3% or whatever it is to use their card. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, is that hurting customer satisfaction, or does the fact that the provider gaining that extra 3%, does that outweigh the satisfaction a customer might feel? Do you have any thoughts on that?
That's a good question. So if you would ask me that question 3 years ago, I probably would have had a different answer.
Yeah.
Corey, surcharging is becoming so much more popular than it ever has been. I think it's like 35% almost of business owners across the United States
Okay. Wow.
are utilizing some kind of surcharging program at this point, and that number is growing.
Sure.
So I don't think there's avoiding surcharging, and I think that that's going to just be commonplace probably in the next few years. I think that the important thing with surcharging is, number one, because of its growing popularity, I think customers are pretty accepting of it now, whereas 3 or 4 years ago, it may have caused some disruption in overall customer satisfaction. I don't think that's as much anymore. However, from a business owner's perspective, it's very important that your surcharging program that you're choosing is compliant, because a lot of them that are out there aren't, and the business owner doesn't know that.
Okay.
Surcharging isn't legal in every state. There's a few states where you can't do surcharging. And then the other thing that's really important for businesses to know about surcharging, in order for you to be PCI compliant, you can't surcharge debit cards. So people's bank cards, you can't put a surcharge on it. And if you get called to the carpet, somebody reports you for doing that, it is going to result in a fine to your business. And if you do it enough times, it results in a really big fine, maybe like $25,000 to your business.
Wow.
And Visa or MasterCard could choose to shut off your ability to accept those cards into your business. So it does come with significant penalty if you continue to do it. And again, some of that for some businesses, if they do get reported, is just negligence. They didn't know.
Yeah.
So education on surcharging before you implement it into your business is so very important.
And where can business owners find that information?
You know what? I think the easiest thing for a business owner to do is Google.
Okay.
Is credit card surcharging legal in my state? And a good Google search will pop right up. But also, if they have questions, they want to talk to a live person, there's no harm in walking into your local bank branch and asking to speak to a merchant services representative.
Yeah. Gotcha. Thank you for that. Last thought before our break. Let's think of like a mom and pop type shop that, for instance, my grandparents owned a small town owned a bakery, only took cash and check as payment, right? And this was obviously maybe 20 years ago. How do they know if adding things like credit cards or other payment options is going to improve their business enough to make it worth it? Is there a way that you can kind of talk through that for people who might be in that situation?
Yeah, I think in 2025, consumer expectation anymore is that you accept at a minimum card payment. That's pretty much the expectation. And the way that I look at it is, we talk an awful lot about first impressions into a business, right? You walk in, and the first impression that you gain, whether the cleanliness of the shop, the friendliness of the staff, that's the opportunity for a business to make a first impression. But we don't talk an awful lot about the last impression that your business leaves on a customer when they're leaving your shop. And that
Sure.
often is the thing that happens that can lead to the customer coming back for repeat business. So payments, more often than not, is the opportunity for the business to leave a last impression. And if you're not allowing for that client to pay in the way that they want to pay, you're causing disruption to that last impression. And potentially that business won't choose to do business with you again because it wasn't easy for them to do business with you. So having options for card payment, whether it's with your card, whether it's with your watch, whether
Sure.
it's with your phone, in 2025, that's just expectation at this point. And again, 80 to 90% of businesses these days, their revenue is coming in through card payment. So if you're not accepting card payment, you're doing your business a disservice and potentially causing yourself the opportunity to lose repeat business if you don't have that.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point. And you hinted at technology. And as we move into a quick break, I'd like to explore the impact of technology on merchant services in general. With the rapid pace of advancements in payment technology, I would imagine it's important for businesses to adapt and leverage these innovations. So we'll get Chris's opinion on this and more right after this. Are you fresh out of school with big dreams and ambition to achieve them? Or is your current business bursting at the seams and it's time to expand your legacy? If you tend to challenge the status quo and shoot for the moon, Provide's SBA loan may be for you. Our dedicated team of small business experts will work with you to make your ownership dreams, no matter how big, a reality. To get started, visit getprovide.com to see how our tech-enabled small business financing and banking can work for you. Again, that's getprovide.com. for when your aspirations of business ownership exceed traditional limits. I'm Corey Brown, and this is Provide's The Path to Owning It podcast. We're back with Cris Agenter, Regional Sales Manager at WorldPay, to discuss some of the ways technology has impacted the world of merchant services for small businesses. Cris, we hinted at this right before the break, but can you explain how, in your opinion, technology has changed this landscape of merchant services, particularly for small business owners within the last few years?
Yeah, we were talking about it earlier with the types of machines that were available when I first came into the business. Obviously, it's adapted so much over the last 4 or 5 years, and even more so with the introduction of different ways now that people get paid. I mean, we think about Venmo, we think about PayPal, we think about Zelle and Cash App and all of those things as well. Those are disruptors in the payment space, certainly for credit card processing as well. So there's been a lot of newness that we've had to navigate. On top of that, we also talked about some of the app-based systems that are out there, like a Commerce 360 or a Clover, that can help businesses grow as they go along. Those things didn't exist 4 or 5 years ago. And again, I think that the big thing that this is helping businesses do, because merchant services so much is a technology business, is that it's helping businesses create new revenue streams. It's helping. If you think about a coffee shop, if you opened up a coffee shop 10 years ago, the coffee shop sold coffee to the people that were local to the area, right? But if you brew your own coffee and you have your own beans and all that kind of stuff, maybe you want to sell your product now. And what merchant services does now today, with the ability to put your product on social media and sell through social media, it allows you to put the whole world on scope to be able to buy your product when you're a coffee shop in Anderson Township, Ohio, right?
Yeah.
So I think that that's really where the technology has gone. It's an exciting business to be a part of, but I think that the fact that it is a technology business really lends itself to placate towards the modern business owner and to help them in growing their business.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of things like, I go to the gym and I stop by the store, but I didn't take my wallet to the gym, but I have my phone, right? So I have my digital wallet, I can easily pay. How do business owners know that people, I guess, want that or craving that sort of option? Is it just assumed at this point in 2025?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, if you go on social media, right, you see all of these businesses that are out there and they're all selling something or they're advertising something that when you're getting through and clicking through on TikTok or Instagram or whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
And in order for you to be able to pay for that, you got to pay for your card that's set up on your phone, right? So that's something that wasn't around years and years ago. I think that business owners are accepting of that. And again, I think that in order for businesses to thrive going future forward, if they're not adapting to these things, it's something that they need to start investigating, because again, they're just shutting themselves off to convenience for their client, additional revenue streams,
Yeah.
and keeping up with the times of business. And that's how businesses shut down as well too, is not adapting to times.
Yeah. Now, I would imagine it would cost more for the business owner to be able to take those forms of payment. Correct me if I'm wrong. But if that is the case, how do they know that that's worth it for their business to be able to offer that?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So, there is going to be cost in adding product and return on investment. I think that you got to do what makes sense for your business. And again, that's why speaking with people who are in the industry, having the connectivity, that service piece that we talked about in the very beginning is really important. You want to get the right guidance and information on what's right for your business. I don't think if you're a podiatrist, you probably don't need to put your business on TikTok and get business from that. But who am I to say? There's Dr. Pimple Popper, so that could be it too. So
I guess you've never seen Toe Bro. You should check that out.
Yeah, there you go. So anyway, I think the best thing that any small business owner can do if they have questions about this stuff is to consult with their merchant services representative and figure out what the best path forward for them is going to be.
Yeah, no, for sure. Talking about this newness and advancements, I know that there's ways now that merchant services can integrate within a small business's existing systems. For example, let's talk about like a healthcare provider's practice management system. In what ways do they integrate, and what kind of benefits does that allow business owners to achieve?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a good question. So, especially with practice management systems for medical practices, that runs the entirety of their business. It houses their scheduling, their patient files, their payroll, accounts payable, accounts receivable, everything is wrapped up into those patient management systems. So having integration into the patient management system or practice management system it just makes everything run so much smoother. It also helps their ability to get paid. A lot of the practice management systems that are available out there potentially have like opportunities to send out like billing and text to pay and all of those things, which is an advancement in technology that helps these practices with their accounts receivable and get paid faster, right? And get those receivables off the books. So integration is something that for most medical practices out there is something that's highly recommended to make your practice run a little bit smoother.
Yeah. As someone who has worked at a front desk of a dentist office for many years, having something like that would certainly make for efficiencies within an office, especially when staffing is at kind of an all-time difficulty. It also probably eliminates human error and manually inputting payments and that sort of thing too, I would imagine, right?
Oh, for sure. If you're doing payments a different way that's not integrated, you definitely open the opportunity for mistakes, delays, things like that, which can ultimately derail operations of a business. It puts the office manager onto projects to try to figure out where everything went wrong, where if it's integrated, it definitely avoids those types of issues.
Yeah. I'm curious, can you talk a little bit about what role does merchant services play in enhancing the overall customer experience? We can talk about both in person and online. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think that there's so many different ways that merchant services can enhance a customer's experience, right? And how they're dealing with your business. If you think about breweries, right? And you think about how they might have a food truck or a separate food partner that's within the brewery.
Yeah.
And they've got a QR code that you can scan and the menu pulls up and you can order your food and pay everything through there, right? That's a merchant services program that they have that allows them to do that. And that makes it easier for your customer to have a great time at the brewery, for you to do your work, call a name, text information out there, get your food out and get through a lot of orders very, very quickly. And it creates for a harmonious relationship that business has with its customers and creating the right atmosphere for the brewery, right? So that's a great example of how merchant services has developed over time to make things easier. Because if you think of how that might have happened 5 or 10 years ago, that whole process is completely different, than the way that it looks today. So online, I can tell you I buy things on the internet all the time. There's things that pop up on Facebook or TikTok or whatever, and I'm, it's $50. I'm going to buy it,
Yeah, right.
And for a business owner, that's fantastic because it's created the impulse buy. While people are sitting on their couch, they don't have to be at your business in order to do that. And there's so many specialized things that you think about. Like one of the things that I bought was a specialized key fob holder. It was $20 and it popped up on an ad on my phone, right?
Yeah.
A few years ago, that business wouldn't have even been able to reach me, much less me buy anything from them. So if we think about the positive impact that that's had on that business and for me, and now I have a safety protector for my key fob. So
there you go.
Everybody wins, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm curious what you're seeing as trends in merchant services that small business owners should at least be aware of to stay competitive in the marketplace moving forward. Is there anything out there that you see that's trending that we should know about?
Well, I think that there's two things. One, we already covered, and that's surcharging. That's growing.
Yeah.
That's not going away. I think that the other trend is probably omni-commerce. And omni-commerce is just having multiple different avenues, utilizing merchant for a lot of different revenue streams that are into your business. We're a global society now, and taking advantage of social media, taking advantage of websites, putting your business in as many places as it possibly can. I think those are trends that are growing, and there's more and more products that are coming out, every single day, every single year, that are making it easier for businesses to be able to do that. It makes the merchant landscape a more competitive place, but I think that's what makes it fun. But it also means that business owners need to do their homework about those products. But certainly omni-commerce and spreading a business out larger is certainly something that is becoming more and more popular as we go along.
Gotcha. Thank you for sharing that. For our last thought for our listeners, for small businesses just starting out, I'm curious if you could share what advice you would give regarding setting up merchant services effectively to ensure smooth operations from day one.
One, I always think it's important to do your own research. I think I said it earlier, a quick Google search about whatever it is that you're looking for to just kind of educate yourself a little bit, to be able to write down the questions that you have that you think are going to be able to pertain to your business. And then I think the next thing that you can do is talk to a merchant services expert. Typically, I would recommend that you walk into whoever you're doing your business banking with and ask to speak with their merchant services representative, and they'll be able to talk specifically about your industry, your business type, the trends that are in your industry, and how they can work best to put a program together that works for you. And then the next thing that I would do after that is get a second opinion and walk into maybe a competing bank and see what they have to say and compare and contrast so that you truly have an apples to apples comparison and are able to make a choice rather than somebody telling you what to do.
Gotcha. Well, if anyone listening now would like to learn more or get a second opinion about merchant services and the options that WorldPay has to offer, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Christopher.agenter@worldpay.com is the best way to get a hold of me, and we will make sure that somebody talks to you about your specific business.
Awesome. Well, Cris, thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge and expertise with us today. You really gave us a crash course in merchant services, and I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Corey.
Thanks for joining us. The path to owning a business is a nuanced journey. We hope you discovered something in this episode that eases your path to success. If so, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Have a topic you'd like discussed in a future episode? Drop us a line in the comments section or send us a message on social media. If you're ready to take control of your future and start building your legacy, be sure to visit getprovide.com. You can view our resources page for more helpful tools, learn how our all-in-one financial and banking products can help you on your path to business ownership, and pre-qualify for financing in under 2 minutes with no impact on your credit score. The Path to Owning It is brought to you by the team at Provide, and it's produced by PodCamp Media, branded podcast production for businesses. PodCampMedia.com. Producer Dusty Weiss, editor Matt Covarrubias. For Provide, I'm Corey Brown. Thanks for being on the journey with us.
Provide is a division of Fifth Third Bank, National Association. All opinions expressed by the participants are solely their current opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Provide, its affiliates, or Fifth Third Bank. The participants' opinions are based on information they consider reliable, but neither Provide, its affiliates, nor Fifth Third Bank warrant its completeness or accuracy and should not be relied upon as such. This content is for informational purposes and does not constitute the rendering of legal, accounting, tax, or investment advice or other professional services by Provide or any of its affiliates. Please consult with appropriate professionals related to your individual circumstances. All lending is subject to review and approval.